PSG are terrifying. And if you aren't scared, you probably should be. Now, they've just signed Lucas Digne for a fee of, I believe, about £10 million, which is ridiculously cheap for a player of his caliber. But it isn't this individual signing that has really terrified me. Uh, it is, however, what it represents for what Luis Enrique has in plan for this team, for what he's done last season, and what he seems to be continuing to do to an even higher extent for this upcoming season. There's really the central idea behind why this PSG team is going to be so strong and will all likelihood win another Champions League. Some of you may be hearing this and thinking, "What is he talking about?" Lucas Digne, sure he's a very good player, but they already have Nunes Menge on that left side. What is he really going to do? Maybe he'll be a good backup, but no. Lucas Digne will, in all likelihood, start almost every game that PSG is going to play in this league on season. And the reason is the same reason that Dembele was benched for almost the entirety of the league on season last year. Uh, and that is that Luis Enrique has realized that with the just growing and growing number of games that these teams have to play each year, they're playing in, sometimes 4 or 5 competitions at once. It's not sustainable. We've seen many players complain about it over the past few years. Notably, like Rodri's talked about it, Modric has talked about it, and it leads to a lot of injuries. Now, what PSG has done to sort of mitigate this is they have depth like no one else in the world, and they're willing to spend money on it. An example of this is, Jan Diomande, one of the most exciting young players in the world, is willing to go to PSG and fight for a spot on the left wing against the likes of Kvicha Kvaratskhelia and Bradley Barcola, who are two of the most, creative, uh, great at creating chances, uh, you know, good at dribbling, flair, finishing. Maybe not Barcola as much on that one, but just two phenomenal left wingers. And Diomande is willing to go there and really add another layer of depth in there, and that is really what's so terrifying. I think about this PSG midfield in particular. Sure, they've got Vitinha, João Neves, and Fabian Ruiz, who may be starting like that in many of these Champions League games. But they've also got uh, brilliant young players like Seni Mayulu. They've got players like Ibrahim Mbaye, um, you know, Zaire Emery, Dro Fernandez. All of these players, 21 years or younger, who are players that, any team in the world would love to have in their center mid position as a backup or even as a starter. These guys are just so brilliant. They really are running Ligue 1 as backups. And that is what is just so terrifying about this PSG squad is that when you go into Champions League games, like they did last season against Bayern Munich, in the games before that, they rested pretty much their entire starting lineup. They had Beraldo and Savarni playing the defense. You had players like Kang and Lee, who is now leaving, but who I imagine they will replace with someone else. Players like Kang and Lee or Mayulu playing in that center mid position. They had Gonçalo Ramos. They're going to have Randall Colomuani this year playing in these forward attacking positions to give players like Kvaratskhelia, give players like Due and Dembele rests so that maybe they play every other game. They'll sub on and play 30 minutes, just to keep the touch right. But there's no risk of getting injured, and this is why this PSG team is just going to be unstoppable because you really don't see teams like Bayern Munich doing this. They haven't really been looking to build the extreme depth that this PSG squad has. Teams in the Premier League like Arsenal and Manchester City, it's incredibly difficult to build this depth because with leagues so ultra competitive, you can't really not afford to start the best players possible. Otherwise, you're really giving up on the league. And so when I think about all of the competition that this PSG side is going to have next year, I'm questioning. Uh, sure, Bayern Munich isn't necessarily looking weaker in any sense, but this PSG side is looking stronger and stronger, and these players are just going to be more and more well rested. And we've seen how important rest can be in winning these games. I mean, for example, at the World Cup, you have the stat of the last four winners of the World Cup were all the teams that played first in their respective semifinals. And so, when you look at this PSG team who's going to be able to rest all of their players for the week or two coming up to these massive Champions League games, coming up against teams who are going to be starting nearly the same 11, perhaps 4 or 5 days after they've just played in a league game, it's just not fair. Uh, I, I don't know. I mean, we saw this a little bit done by Zinedine Zidane uh, in that 2017, that whole three-peat UCL season, but I don't really think it was to the extent that Luis Enrique really plans to do, because it seems to me like he is going to be fully satisfied not starting a single player. And these players have all bought in. They've seen over the past 2 years, they know Luis Enrique, is probably the best coach in the world at this moment, and they trust in everything that he has to say to win. So if that means you're not going to play, you're not going to get the stats. Maybe it means that Dembele won't win the Ballon d'Or this year because his stats in the league weren't great. Um, World Cup aside, they know and they've bought in that the team is more important, and if they're willing to sit down so that they can start in the Champions League final, I see absolutely no reason why they shouldn't win this next one to three-peat, and maybe another one or two to go 4 or 5 in a row, which would be absolutely insane. But if any team can do it, it's going to be this Paris Saint-Germain side. Thanks for tuning in and listening to me rant for a couple of minutes about how absolutely ridiculous I think this PSG team is going to be. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing, and we will see you guys in the next one. Peace.